Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Normally I talk about on this channel antiques and collectibles. You will often hear me say the antiques and collectibles trade because, believe it or not, they do go hand in hand. Why there are similarities in how those markets operate over the short term and over the long term, there's also differences. Obviously, if you have a collecting category that has been around for over 100 years, it automatically meets the definition of antique. Antique markets, by nature, because they've been around longer than collectible markets, are relatively more stable. That doesn't mean they're always a good investment. I want to make that very clear from a financial perspective. But overall, simply because a market that belongs on the antique side of the equation has been around at least 100 years, those markets are pretty much more secure than collectible markets. Now, with that being said, right now, as I film this video, I have a lot of disgust towards a lot of multi-billion-dollar corporations, a lot of grading companies, a lot of people that are really, in my opinion, I'm just going to say it, effing up the collectible side of the trade. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to give you certain examples. And again, I mean no disrespect towards anybody who may take offense to what I'm going to say in this video, but just understand, as a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade, who has a passion for all this stuff, and that's something that I don't think I emphasize a lot on this channel, even though this is a collectible finance channel, and I even tell you guys, I'm not here to hold your hand as we walk down memory lane and talk about the first time you discovered Star Wars, or Nintendo, or Pokemon, or Magic the Gathering, or G.I. Joe, whatever it is. I probably have a passion for it too. But overall, this is a finance-based channel. So a lot of times I do try to stay neutral on a lot of my talking points. Well, with that being said, in this video, I cannot help contain my disgust for what's happening in a lot of these markets. Let's talk about Magic the Gathering first. So Hasbro makes the announcement, hey, you know what? For our 30th anniversary, let's reprint the reserve list, but let's do it in a way where the cards aren't tournament legal, so people don't think that we actually reprinted the reserve list, and let's up the price to an insane amount, limit supply, and ensure that the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters out there get excited for the product. Now, if you don't know what I'm referring to, again, please simply Google Magic the Gathering 30th Anniversary Edition set. So for $999, you get 4 packs of 15 cards each. So roughly you get 60 cards for $999, and you may get lucky and you may pull an updated Power 9 or a Black Lotus or a very valuable card that has updated art, but we really can't call it a reprint because it's not tournament legal, and again, it has updated art from the originals. Now, this is creating massive chaos in the market, as we're seeing. I don't know if any of you out there that are really into Magic the Gathering are doing any price investigation on this. Prices are either spiking or falling on some of this stuff. It's even affecting the vintage market. Hasbro has a mass mess on their hands. For the pursuit of short-term gains, they pretty much almost killed their most profitable franchise. Literally, other than Monopoly, other than having the rights to produce Star Wars toys and action figures at present time, Magic the Gathering and possibly Dungeons and Dragons was their most important property that they owned. Now, if you look at the prices for some of these particular cards, for what's happening in the secondary market, how this product pretty much unified the whole community, whether you're just a player, a casual enthusiast, a collector, one of the evil speculators or investors out there, almost everybody agrees that this product is creating mass confusion on the secondary market. And honestly, myself, I don't even know what to think about this. This reminds me, for those of you that are around my age, maybe you remember back in the 1990s, mid-1990s, all the way up through the release of Star Wars Phantom Menace and beyond. Hasbro really started producing a lot of scarce, limited edition Star Wars action figures and products because they were catering to the speculators back then who thought, well, gee, the original Star Wars figures from the late 1970s and mid 1980s, they're highly collectible right now. So that means this new line of figures that they're bringing out is going to be just as collectible as them. So speculators, Timmys, Kimmys, Poindexters all went nuts and they started buying up in bulk factory sealed Star Wars figures. They kept them factory sealed, and guess what? To this very day, most of that stuff is not worth any significant premium on the secondary market. Most of those speculators would have been better off putting their money in a well-diversified portfolio or even total stock market index fund, S&P 500 index fund. Take your pick. Now, what does this mean? Well, back then, Hasbro got a taste of the speculator mindset of all the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters lining up to buy their products, thinking they're going to get rich in another 10, 20 years just because this stuff isn't going to be produced anymore. Unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast, which is now owned by Hasbro, they have that same mindset. And there's people making horrible decisions. You know, I was okay. Believe it or not, I hated this. It left a bitter taste in my mouth. But I was okay when Magic the Gathering started to do some crazy things, like with the Masterpiece editions, the chase cards, what Rudy of Alpha Investments calls the lottery cards that came out in, what was it, Battle for Zendikar. Then we had the Kaladesh ones that continued that particular lineage. Then we had Secret Lairs. Then we have collector booster boxes, all this crazy stuff. Look, if that's what the company wants to do, as long as there's people buying that product and they understand the risk, they watch my channel, they understand what mass-produced scarcity is, and they understand this in depth, I have no problem with that. But I think what happened was somebody at Hasbro said, you know what? We could really make a ton of money in the fourth quarter of 2022 if we put out this product for $999. And I don't think they really thought it through. I don't think that they really looked at how it was going to affect the secondary market in the present time and also going forward. And this is something that really, really causes me to caution so many of you out there that fall for a lot of these gimmicks, that spend all this money on these mass-produced products when you could be literally going after the really valuable vintage stuff. And I did do a video on that. I told you guys, in my opinion, if you want to invest in Magic the Gathering over the long term, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Antiquities, Legends, and Arabian Nights. They're the items and sets and cards and factory sealed booster boxes that I would be going after. I wouldn't even be doing anything with Ice Age, Mirage, Tempest, any of that stuff. Now, a lot of people, whenever I say this, they ask me, Sean, what about the Urza's block? You really do like the Urza's block, right? I do, only because there doesn't seem to be as much of that particular block out there when we compare it to Mirage or Fallen Empires or Ice Age or even the Dark. It just seems that the Urza block, some of those particular pieces are somewhat more scarce than a lot of the other reserve list cards that were printed at that same time. Now, maybe that's just because I have a bias towards the Urza's block. I do like that block of Magic, but overall, I do consider that more iconic than Mirage, Tempest, Ice Age, and the like. Now, with that being said, I honestly do not know where this is going to end up when the dust settles. A lot of people want me to comment on this. Well, Sean, what's going to happen with Magic the Gathering? Is Magic the Gathering going to die? I don't think it's going to die completely. There's a lot of hardcore fans out there that love Magic the Gathering. And I honestly think if Hasbro can get through this snafu and they don't keep making these same mistakes, if they get back to basics, Magic the Gathering can also grow as a collectible card game, which it should. Magic the Gathering is an incredible card game, in my opinion. But Hasbro is really running it into the ground, trying to go after short-term gains at the expense, at the long-term value of their own licensed property. And that is a recipe for disaster. This is why I often have conversations with a lot of Nintendo enthusiasts. And a lot of Nintendo enthusiasts come to me, which full disclosure, I'm also a Nintendo enthusiast. How come Nintendo doesn't capitalize more on their previous franchises? And this really always rubs me the wrong way because I'm a huge F-Zero fan. And for those of you unaware, the last great home console version of F-Zero pretty much was released back in the early 2000s on the Nintendo GameCube, F-Zero GX. There has not been a home console sequel or update to F-Zero since then. And really, it pains my heart because it's almost like Nintendo is allowing that franchise to pretty much die out. I mean, literally, the last thing that we got F-Zero related by Nintendo was the Captain Falcon amiibo, honestly, in 2014. That's pretty much all we got. Now, where am I going with this? Well, one of the reasons you got to understand that Nintendo doesn't overcapitalize on their previous franchises is because it oversaturates the market and people tend to sour on Nintendo. If every single year or every 6 months, Nintendo was putting out like a Mario compilation or a Zelda compilation or even a Metroid compilation, people would start to get sick of a lot of these games. Now, to be fair, Nintendo has learned that they can profit immensely from their vast catalog of vintage games. And that's why we have a continuous supply of re-releases. How many times was The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess released? It came out for the Wii. It was on the Wii U. It's rumored to be being put out for the Nintendo Switch. You already have Skyward Sword. A lot of these old games are continually being reproduced, put out with new content by a lot of these companies. Look at what Capcom's doing. Capcom re-released Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 for the PlayStation 4, and now they're going to be coming out with Resident Evil 4 for the PlayStation 5. Companies make a lot of money on these old properties at present time. This is something that video game collectors don't understand. This is why some of your earlier games are very collectible today. They didn't get a re-release. It wasn't 1985 Nintendo is not equivalent to 2022 Nintendo. And I think you guys all need to realize that. We're in this weird market where we not only have people that want to go back and visit these franchises, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not against companies putting out products that pretty much either wink or nod to an earlier time. That's nostalgia in a nutshell. But what I don't think a lot of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters realize out there is that if you're trying to collect this stuff, you have to understand the potential for this stuff to go up extremely in value over the long term is extremely limited for that reason. It's mass-produced scarcity, guys. It's popcorn. It's pretty much popcorn in a dish that you enjoy and nobody really wants to keep going back to it because you already know the company in question, whether it's Capcom, Konami, Nintendo, they're just going to re-release another updated version of that same property. And this can go on indefinitely, guys. We see this in other markets all the time. Pop culture markets are all based on certain principles. If you analyze any market on pop culture collecting, whether it's comic books, video games, what else? Collectible card games, any of those markets, toys, they're all based on the same principle. It's linear, and they keep releasing over and over again the popular items. So I'm very frustrated to see these developments. Now, this goes even further, though, because in the year 2022, we have private equity companies. If you don't know what that is, please Google it. I'm tired of defining all these terms for people that just discover this channel. We have private equity companies coming into the collectibles trade, and they're either buying up auction houses or grading companies, and they're employing these same principles. You know, I got copied on an email from CGC telling me that they have limited edition grading labels. Please tell me why in the year 2022, if I'm going to send in an Amazing Spider-Man 50, first appearance of Kingpin, that came out in the 1960s, why I need to worry about having a limited edition grading label. Just grade the damn book, put whatever label you want on there, and send it back to me. I'm buying the book. I'm not buying a special edition grading label. Some of you guys are cracking me up. I did join on Facebook some of these collecting groups. I'm in some of them. And, a lot of times I have to bite my tongue because I recognize these are not investment groups. These are collecting groups. So it's unfair for me to speak up that, hey, if you like this particular item, you shouldn't buy it because it may not be a good investment. Because again, these are collecting groups. They're not finance groups. So I'm not trying to offend anybody. But I see what people post and it's like, dude, do you really need a limited edition grading label to go with your Hulk, Spider-Man, X-Men comic book? You're supposed to be buying the book. The company, the grading company in question, is supposed to be offering an opinion. They're supposed to evaluate that item, encase it in plastic, and put a little grading label there so that you understand what you bought. It's not supposed to be an extra piece of artwork that somebody's going to pay a premium for simply because they log on the Comic Link or Heritage Auctions and they say your copy of Amazing Spider-Man 129 in CGC 9.4, and there's 2 of them up there for bid, and they go, oh, that one has the limited grading label. I'm going to pay more of a premium for that. Do you see how this is starting to affect the secondary market? It is completely ridiculous. Look, I can go on and on all these stupid advancements that are happening in these markets with billionaires, market makers, market manipulators, auction companies, grading companies, speculators trying to take advantage of the average Timmy, Kimmy, or Poindexter. But we would be here all day. This video is already going to be over 17 minutes long. And this is just me ranting over this particular stuff. Look, guys, I'm going to end the video here, but make no mistake. We are in uncharted territory. As we enter the collectibles trade in 2023, a lot of you out there over the next few years are going to end up getting hurt. Right now, since the pandemic, there have been a lot of people entering the collectibles market. We even have fractional share companies like Rally, all these other companies that are offering slices of collectibles. Well, they'll take like an Incredible Hulk 181 in CGC 9.8, and they'll allow you to invest in that particular item at a smaller amount, where you don't even get to own the item, you get to own a part of that particular item. Again, I've done videos on this. You guys are pretty much taking a illiquid item and you're making it even more illiquid, and you're wrapping around management fees, brokerage fees, and the like, just so that you can tell everyone, hey, I own a piece of an Incredible Hulk 181 in CGC 9.8. It is completely ridiculous. And a lot of you guys, unfortunately, are falling for a lot of this stuff, More to come on this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, this is a very negative video. I'm sorry to put out this particular video at present time, but it's just 100% how I feel. And I think a lot of you out there literally agree with me. You just can't express it because you have a nostalgic attachment to a lot of these items. And I understand, but you have to look at the financial risk you're taking to play in these markets at present time. Whether or not you like me, like my content, understand mass-produced scarcity, also known at present time when we talk about Magic the Gathering, mass-produced stupidity is 100% real. And a lot of you guys are going to get burned by it. Even with Pokemon printing 9 billion cards, with a lot of these companies are doing crazy things, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.